It's time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning with Arise News analyst Dr. Constance Ikoku. Dr. Ikoku, good morning.
Good morning, Nkechi. Do you believe? Do you believe?
I believe.
Yes.
I believe.
Okay,
What do we believe
Yolanda,
in?
do you believe? You're Nigerian now.
I'm trying to believe.
Okay, you're trying to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all should believe in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
The National Orientation Agency is telling us. Okay, yeah. This morning we have to look at the papers with us. Chuks Akunna he is the executive director of Authority newspaper. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with This Day. In This Day, Obasanjo, democracy has failed in Africa, albeit it's collapsing in Nigeria. When former President Olusegun Obasanjo speaks, people listen. I think he's arguably, currently one of the most respected statesmen on the African continent. And to him, across our continent, democracy is on the decline due to lack of alignment with African values and realities. He said Africans have their own governance or had their own governance systems before colonial rule that served the people better. However, today it's democracy by a small number of people, for a small number of people, over a large number of people. Chuks, valid points raised by the former president, although his critics will quickly counter. What did you contribute when you were there in office?
Yeah, exactly, and I think that should be the point, But the Bible says that do we continue in sin and ask and want peace to abound? You see, that said in 1999 when President Obasanjo emerged president, he was the first person to declare himself leader of the ruling People's Democratic Party. And once the president did that, the governors took a cue from him, and in all the states too, they declared themselves leaders of the party. And time and again, we saw how President Obasanjo presided over Nigeria. Party leadership, his relationship with the Senate, the National Assembly. Don't forget that it was under President Obasanjo that a man who was not declared winner of an election became Senate president. And persons who did not qualify for certain offices who are actually elected. We had cases in point in the National Assembly, the first Senate president in 1999, Evans Werem, and then the Speaker at the time, Salisu Buhari. So it's good to talk about the past, and it's also good for people to pontificate. But then, like you said, people ask you, what did you do when you were there? And I think the lowest point in President Obasanjo's presidency was in 2007 when he tried to actually succeed himself, for a third term. And I think that is the genesis of most of the problems we have today in Nigeria, because had President Obasanjo finished his tenure and left, you can't say that about former President Goodluck Jonathan. When he lost elections, he bowed out very, very honorably.
Okay, when you review the entire tenure, he was there for 8 years. It was a mixed bag. He had his great achievements. There were also failures. So I think it's important to appraise, each administration on both sides. There were good and bad. And then we also have in This Day, Idris Tinubu will lift emergency rule in Rivers as soon as normalcy is restored. This is an assurance from the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, for those that are worried about what is currently going on in Rivers State. On to Daily Sun this morning, Honor Humphrey Nwosu posthumously, INEC chairman urges FG. The late Nwosu was the Independent National Electoral Commission chairman between 1989 and 1993 and conducted the June 12, 1993 election, said to be the freest and fairest in the history of Nigeria. He passed last year, October, at the age of 83. Chuks again, interesting coming from the current chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu. He said Nwosu did his best but was not appreciated by Nigeria.
Yes, and the truth is that I've had several big wigs, military officers, politicians, and several persons calling to say, why are we in the media not pushing for the federal government to actually recognize Humphrey Nwosu? And I think the apogee came during former military leaders book launch, where people said, okay, having said all this, what is government doing about that? We named the National Stadium after MK Abiola. But it remains a huge tragedy that the man who actually, stood against all odds, who braved the odds to declare MK Abiola winner, we seem not to, sing his praise. He happens to be an unsung hero. And this has set very, very dangerous and very wrong signals to persons who in future want to stick out their necks to actually do what is right. Don't forget that he did that when it was during the military era, not now. We can imagine the kind of pressure that mounts on current electoral umpires in the states and the federal level at this time. You can imagine how brave, how courageous a man called Humphrey Nwosu was at this time.
All right, we'll look and see whether the federal government listens to all this what people are saying regarding honoring him. Let's go to New Telegraph. Ajero wants FG governors don't play politics. Respect Supreme Court ruling on LG autonomy. Nigeria Labour Congress NLC President Joe Ajero asked state governments not to undermine attempts at establishing accounts with the Central Bank of Nigeria for the local councils to receive their allocations. Okay, let me come to you. Ajero, for some time now, he seems to be credibility challenged. Nonetheless, this is a case of the message and not the messenger, I guess.
I agree with you, Constance. The NLC, not just Ajero, I think the NLC, TUC, whenever they come out to speak, Nigerians seem to have lost some trust in them. But we need to focus on the message that he's talking about. And I think we spoke about this last week. The Supreme Court's July 11th ruling was clear. We need that local government autonomy, no bottlenecks, no sort of conditions. I think Ajaro was saying it's not a case of if I like you, I give you money. If I don't like you, I don't give you. It is clear. The federal government or the governors cannot pick and choose what Supreme Court rulings they follow based on what's their interest or what favors them. The local governments are the closest to the people, so they need that autonomy. They need that control to be able to get to the people. And I think we should just focus on the message and just leave Ajaro and NLC and all their actions or inactions and focus on the message that he's passing. I think it's a good one because this again is another precedent that will be set if this actually does not go through. And I think again in Nigeria, I don't know how we can do it, but we need to find a way to sort of make sure that rulings of the courts are enforced, because it seems like the courts give rulings and everyone just folds their arms and they're like, okay, we'll just allow time to pass and do whatever.
Well, when the federal government sometimes also does not obey court rulings, the past 8 years we had a lot of problems of the federal government not obeying court rulings. So if the government itself at the top does not lead by example, what do you expect in other tiers of government? I think that's the problem that we are facing. Okay, let's go back to Daily Sun. There's another story there that we need to look at. Here, back to Obasanjo accuses NASS of bribery, says federal lawmakers took money to ratify Rivers emergency proclamation. There were murmurings, Yolanda, I want you to come in here. There were murmurings regarding this money for approval of emergency rule. Now, former President Obasanjo is saying it out loudly. And his traducers again will probably say, when you were president, that National Assembly was not different either. So why are you speaking up?
Exactly. And a report was put out yesterday, and when I saw it I just smiled, because it was actually said, oh, the money that was given out was actually not a bribery. It was a yearly thing that is done in commemoration of Salah. And that shocked me, and I just smiled to myself and I said, you know what, some things are never going to change. He called for transparency and accountability in governance, urging lawmakers to, make the right decisions. But is this truly what's happening? There's very little transparency going on here, and the lines are truly blurred. Sorry, Chooks, I saw you shaking your head. Did you hear about the Salah remark as well?
I did.
Yeah.
I think a lawmaker told a reporter that.
Exactly.
If it walks like a bribe, talks like a bribe, might look like a bribe. I don't know about Salah, whatever. This reminds me of when the president of the Senate was saying, check your, what was this? Check your pigeonholes or something like that. So there's a token there. And again, what former President Obasanjo is saying, we have to focus on the message.
Not the messenger.
Not the messenger. However, he actually is the president that set the precedent of declaring state of emergency and suspending governors. And so this is something that we're even falling back on. People that are saying that this state of emergency declaration is apt or is necessary are falling back on that and saying, look, we've done it before and we have to follow that. So,
but like Chu said, shall we continue in sin using that biblical
well,
reference?
that's it. Like I said yesterday, another administration is going to come and use this as a precedent and say, look, we can do 2/3 majority votes by voice voting.
Okay, let's quickly move on to The Guardian. 1,102 local vessels rely on Ghana others for routine maintenance. Nigeria loses $148 million yearly to other West African countries. Outdated infrastructure, limited capacity crippling Nigeria's shipyard industry. Dozens of Nigerian shipyard facilities left to rot away. Chooks is the story of Nigeria, isn't it?
Yes, and I think we used to have, I don't know what happened to Niger Dock, where they used to fix vessels in Nigeria. But like everything Nigerian, we're almost outsourcing everything. Imagine going to Ghana to fix our ships, and imagine if over 1,000 vessels. You can imagine how much forex we're losing on account of that. We're talking about unemployment for the youth. And you ask yourself, what are we really doing about certifying our artisans, welders?
Yeah.
We have professional welders, those who do pipeline undersea welding. We go to countries like India for training. And you ask yourself, why can't we train these guys here? Why can't we train ourselves in Nigeria so that we can keep, so we can conserve forex? It's a sad thing. Imagine going to Ghana to fix our, I'm sure very soon we'll be going to Ghana to fix our aircraft.
And
wow,
there's more information to show you how damaging this is. It says Nigeria has a 50 billion naira modular floating dock acquired in 2018 by NASS, and it has been abandoned. Numerous international vessels that dock on Nigeria's shores look for a maintenance in other places, or they have to go to other places, and the list goes on and on. So such a sad situation. Let's quickly take Blueprint before we head into the international papers. Blueprint here. Salah Durbar, Emir Sanusi rains curses on troublemakers. He said, and I quote, "This war," that's the emirship tussle, "is not targeted at me. They are fighting what God has destined to happen. Fire will consume anyone planning to set fire in Kano. May he never witness peace in his life. Whoever is challenging God's decision will not end well." Well, there seems to be tension following the state governor's directive that local councils begin Salah Durbar procession. While that's going on, Sanusi's rival, the deposed Emir Ado Bayero, is said to be planning his own Durbar. So, two kings in one town. Nkechi, are you surprised that Ado Bayero has continued to challenge Sanusi?
I mean, I'm not surprised. From the beginning of this tension, it's just showing that, look, none of them are going to step down. And it's sad that this is now beginning to interfere in such a religious event, such a historical event, and we might even see it being cancelled in total just because of the sort of tension that is causing, the sort of division that is causing at a time, Ramadan, where people are supposed to be coming together, celebrating, and just celebrating the end of their fasting. This is another case of Supreme Court's rulings or different court rulings, people trying to pick and choose what the court is saying when we know clearly what the court means. It's just a sad situation. I think even more sad just because of the time and the period and the issues that is causing around this sort of religious time.
And let's quickly take a story also in New Telegraph. Natasha, INEC receives constituents recall petition. That's Senator Natasha Akpotu-Uduaghan, and there have been attempts to recall her. Chooks, we know that in the past, recall process is very stringent. They try to recall Dino Melaye, Senator Ali Ndume, Jibril Aminu, Garba Dati Mohammed. Do you think that this one will scale through?
Well, there's always a first time, and I think the forces against Senator Natasha Akpoti are not relenting. And don't forget that she's also fighting back with everything she can. She's clawing out, she's scratching, she's biting, you know. And social media is awash. It's been awash with several sizzling stories and videos, you know, of what transpired or what may have transpired between the lady and Senate President Godswill Akpabio. So it's not impossible that we've seen the hand of Esau and the voice of Jacob in this. But, you know, in warfare, you know, all is fair. And I think that is what is playing. And so, you know, like I said, there's always a first time. And I hope this wouldn't be the first time a lawmaker will recall in Nigeria.
More to come on that front, I think. Daily Mail this morning, the international headlines, Freebie Gate Day 2. Now reefs in hot water over free 276 pounds theatre tickets. The UK Chancellor of the Exchequer received expensive tickets for a concert causing public anger, especially because she's about to cut 10,000 civil service jobs. Remember that last year Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer also came under fire for receiving 32,000 worth of clothes from a Labour donor. Yolanda, what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on this are, I think that, you know, the rest of the world, especially Africa, needs to take this as a wake-up call, because they are shouting fire for tickets that are valued at £276, while people are receiving blatantly and in the open such bigger bribes, you know, in the faces of people, and justifying it as well. You know, it's the difference in a society that functions well and that holds people accountable is very prevalent here. Now, even though she has defended her actions, stating that, you know, the tickets that she received were part of a prominent event, critics have still argued that this should not be done in the face of transparency, and I would have to agree with that as well.
So strict ethical codes they're trying to enforce, which is important in public service. Let's also look at the Daily Telegraph. Europe are pathetic freeloaders, say leaked White House texts. These are astonishing text messages where President Trump's team, you know, they're showing contempt for bailing out the Europeans. And this was in relation to military strikes against the Houthis in Yemen and the disruption of shipping lines. The text insinuated that America needs to get something in return. I mean, it's so apparent that everything that has to do with President Donald Trump and his team is about the deal. They see deals in every single thing. Europe, they say, is capable of picking up its bills, so they shouldn't be doing that. Anyone can jump in there.
Look at what Trump said about the war in Ukraine. You know, he said, how much is the EU of the GDP EU countries contributing? That they should, in fact, they shouldn't even do the 2%. They should up it to 5%. You know, the Americans are not ready to actually to bear, you know, this, and that's why, you know, imagine calling somebody a freeloader. You know, it's very, very derogatory. It's very, very insulting to say the least. But they know it's America first, and I think that is Trump's Trump card.
At the same time, Europe is not a poor continent. So I guess they can pay for themselves.
Exactly. And I think Donald Trump has never minced his words. So I don't think people were really shocked about what was in the messages. I think they were just shocked that a journalist sort of was reading the messages and they did not know that a civilian was part of those messages, because Donald Trump has always said, look, this is America first. If we are not benefiting from these in international institutions, if we're not benefiting from helping you if you're having issues in your country, we are not going to do it. My people have to eat first. That is Donald Trump. So I wasn't shocked seeing the messages, to be honest. And I also was not shocked to know that a journalist allegedly was included in those text messages. Donald Trump likes controversy.
Yeah, it was a mistake. Well, Chukwusakuna, we have to say thank you so much for joining us this morning. Chukwusakuna is the Executive Director of Authority newspaper.
All right, thank you so much as well, Dr. Constance Ikoku, for joining us this morning bright and early as always. That's all we have for you here on Daybreak. It's goodbye from me, Nkechi Nana.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.